2 years of nights have turned me into a nocturnal animal. Even with the rain, hidden in the chaos is the element. They think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows.
Are you thinking of lowering the front of your Tahoe? Today I'll be showing you step by step how I drop my front end 3 inches. Anytime you're working on your suspension, you do want to get in alignment, but don't worry, I'll give you some quick tips on how to make some home adjustments. That way you can make it safely to an alignment shop. And if you're ready, let's get straight to it. It's been fun riding around with the mini squat these last couple weeks, but it is time to go ahead and complete the drop. Before I lower the front, I'll go ahead and add some WD-40 to the torsion bars in the front and rear. Here's the parts to lower the front of the Tahoe, and again, thanks to DJM Suspension for sponsoring this kit. We have the lower control arms, which are going to drop at 3 inches in the front, and they are size specific. This one is the passenger side, and then you can see here is the driver one. So you don't want to mix them up. They come with the new ball joints, the hardware to use it on the bottom shock because it's a different style. They also have the grease fittings in the bag so that we can put them on the new ball joints, as well as on the side of the control arms. And they do go with the torsion bar, so we'll have to remove that to go ahead and install this control arm. We also have their front lowering shocks, which are the 1315 model, and they come with all the bushings and hardware to install them. You can see on the bottom it's different versus the original one, and we have to put in the sleeve that comes in the packaging. When you install the fittings, make sure not to over tighten them because they will break. That feels good right there. You don't want to overdo it because they'll for sure break. We have 2 more on the bottom of the control arm. And these are 8mm. All right, that looks good. Once they're in the truck, I'll add the grease on them. Let's go ahead and put on the sleeves for the shock. There is different ones. You can see this one doesn't fit that bolt, so we won't be using this one. And this is the same thing. These should be the right ones. That's good, and there. So I'll go ahead and add a bit of grease on here so that it can make it a bit easier. And this is the same for the rear shocks as well. We won't be using these. First, I'll start by removing the torsion keys so that I can get it out of the way and free the control arm. But I'm gonna go ahead and measure the bolts right now so that I can kind of get it as close as possible to the stock ride height without affecting the camber too much. Here's my driver's side key, and over there you can see the passengers. The bolt is sticking out a little bit more on that one, but this one is pretty close up in here, so let's go ahead and start measuring it. It's almost all the way in. You can kind of see it's like a little bit less than ½ inch, so I'll try to kind of stay in that area. All right, we're at the passenger side, and there's my factory bolt. You can see it's sticking out way more, so let's go ahead and measure this one. Between the threads it says 5/8, and right at the bolt head 7/8, so almost 1 inch. To remove the torsion bar keys, we will need a torsion bar removal tool, and I'll be using a 1 inch socket on this one to unthread it or thread it. And to actually remove the bolt holding the torsion key, it's going to be an 18mm bolt, so I just have a 18mm deep socket, but you can use the standard size. Also, you can use a hand ratchet or drill. They both work. This will just make it a little bit quicker. First, we're gonna take off the 18mm bolt completely off, and then we can use the tool to raise up the key, and then we can take off this little retainer clip or metal piece. I added some WD-40 because it's giving me a hard time to come off, most likely there's some rust on the threads. I got the big ratchet and I'm just doing it little by little because I don't want to break this bolt. You see it just kind of moves very slightly. So you just want to just take your time and try not to damage it or break it. One turn at a time is just starting to loosen up. It still got some threads. Let's see if it's loose enough for the drill now. I was just kind of worried in the beginning because I didn't want to break it with the drill. There's the 18mm bolt, and it was a bit of a workout to get this one out, but you can see that the retainer is still in place. It's kind of dark in here, but we have to use a tool now to remove it, and that way the key will come right out. But first, I'll go on the passenger side and remove the 18mm bolt as well, just in case it's stubborn as on the driver's side. Let's see how this one does. I did add some WD-40, but I think it's also because the bolt was sticking out further out versus the driver's side. It's hard to get a good view down here, but once you go ahead and touch on the top side, you'll feel a empty hole. That's where the tool will lock in from the top with the tab. And on the bottom of the torsion key, you'll notice the dimple right here, which is where you want to put that other side of the threaded nut or bolt, not on the right side, because this is the one that we're going to take off right now. This is the dimple that'll insert into the top hole, and you want to put this part under the key. Alright, I got it on there, so it's not moving anymore. I got it locked in from the top, and on the bottom side you can see where I'm grabbing onto that dimple, and the threaded part is empty. We're just going to tighten it to where that retainer can come loose, and try not to stick your fingers inside there. You can see it's already loose right there, so as long as it comes out, then you're good. There it is. So we'll go ahead and do this on the passenger side as well, and now we can just release the tension on here. We're gonna back it out. There it is, it's loose already. The top hole for the passenger side is closer to the exhaust, so don't mix it up with the other hole here on the left side. There's another one. So it's a bit slanted, and you can see that it kind of angles up to the other side of the key right here with the dimple. And we're not trying to go into the threaded side because this is the one we're removing. Alright, this is the tricky part here. We have to remove the key from the torsion bar. So you can hammer it down or wiggle it. It all kind of helps out as long as you get it out. And there's also a hole here where you can try to kind of hammer it with a tool, so the bar can go forward because it doesn't have any room to go back. The bar runs all the way up to the lower control arm. That's why we got to remove it so we can replace this piece. I didn't get to film it, but this one actually came out real easy. I think it's that WD-40 that helped out. I just kind of pulled it forward and it just slid out from the back. I got the key over here, but let me see if I can catch the passenger side. I'll try the same way, pulling it from here. The key just dropped. So I didn't have to hammer it. I was just grabbing the bar from here and there and just trying to, you know, jam it to the front because it was kind of loose already with that WD-40. Not too bad. There's the key right there. Yeah. Just gonna put it back here. So I'll just let it sit in here while I do the front end. Let's go ahead and unbolt the top of the shocks. It's a 14mm nut. I'm gonna go ahead and go from the top side because it's a little bit easier versus down here. You wanna hold the bottom of the shock with a vice grip. If not, it's gonna go ahead and spin on you. There it is. They're pretty worn out. Since I'm replacing the lower control arm and the shock, I won't waste my time by unbolting this and just take it out in one piece. Now we can remove the end links and it'll be the same as the shocks with the vice grip on top and a 14mm bolt on the bottom. There you can see that 14mm. And we're just gonna grab the top with the vice grip just like the shock. And today I'll be reusing my original end links. They're a bit worn out, but they'll work for now. And it'll be the same on the passenger side. All right, now we can remove the lower ball joint nut, which is a 24mm. The impact just makes it easier, but you can do it by hand. And we'll go ahead and put this back on. Since I don't have the tool to remove the lower ball joint, I'll try to knock it loose with a hammer or a mallet. I finally got the lower ball joint from the driver's side loose. You can see it there. And all I had to do was raise up the lower control arm with the jack and just hammer it on the bottom of the nut. That freed it. It is a lot of work, so I do prefer using the tool to remove the ball joint. But I didn't have it this time, so I'll go ahead and try that again on the passenger side. All right. This is how I'll tackle the passenger side. I'm gonna go ahead and jack up on the lower control arm so I can lift it up and get the ball joint out of here. That way I can go ahead and unbolt the lower control arm from the front and back, because you can see I still have the bolts on there. Pull the torsion bar forward so it can give me some more moving room, and that should just kind of let everything fall down with the shock included. All right, now that we have the lower ball joint free, we can remove the nuts and bolts from the lower control arm. In the front side of it, back here, there's gonna be a 18mm bolt head, and on the back side is being held on by a 24mm nut. The same on the back. You can see right there is a 18mm, and the nut is just right on the back of it. From the front side, you'll see this hole, and there you can see the bolt head. And there is the other 18mm bolt head. There's the lock washer and nut. I'll move the torsion bar a bit forward just to give it some more space. Alright guys, the lower control arm is now out, and I did manage to remove it with the shock in place. I just had to move the torsion bar a little bit to give me some space and just wiggle everything out of there. but I'll go ahead and do this on the passenger side. It'll be exactly the same. I'm just holding the rotor with my jack, and I've already removed this bolt, and it's pretty much all just falling out now. I'm just taking this last bolt out, and I'll go ahead and try to pry it with a pry tool. That's all one piece there, and I'll go ahead and take off the torsion bar, put it back in here, and go ahead and install the new control arm. But you do want to be careful if you are doing something like this, because they are very heavy. You also want to go ahead and slide the torsion bar the same way it came back out, with the back piece in the rear. And also we can kind of clean up this area so that the new control arm can slide in easier. The torsion bar is heavy, but you can see the hole here where you have to slide it right through. And back here you can see the hole where you'll put the torsion key. I like to add the grease on the bushings just to make it a little bit easier once I install it. Don't forget that the longer bolt goes on the back side of the control arm where the torsion bar goes, and the shorter one is the one that goes in the front. I'll install my control arm from the back first because it is pretty heavy, but some people like to do the ball joint and then do the last two bolts. Whichever works out best for you. This is how I'm starting to put the control arm on. I went ahead and inserted the torsion bar, and it's just standing on this pad, but I'm gonna go ahead and lift it up so that I can run up the bolts, and then after I can do my ball joint in the front. To help me line it up, I went ahead and put in a flathead screwdriver. Meanwhile, I hit this one with the mallet, and that usually helps out, and then I can actually put in the original bolts. Sometimes an extension can help you line it up as well. Alright, at this point I have the front bolt in the control arm. On the back side it's still not aligned. I took off the flathead and just kind of moved the torsion bar forward so it can give me some more space, because it makes it a bit tricky, and it's a good idea to install it now. So I have the torsion bar key ready, and once I get all this aligned I can push it in with the key in place, and then I can finally do the lower ball joint. It is a bit hard to film it, but on the left side I have the flathead, and it helps me line up the right side so I can insert the bolt. I lifted up the rotor with the jack, and that way I can also lift up the control arm because it was having a hard time going in, but the bolt went through, and now we can go ahead and put the nuts and bolts. Don't forget the lock washer as well. I'll leave them loose for now, and we can go ahead and work on the ball joint. Right now I'm just holding the control arm with a jack stand, and I'm gonna pick up the hub with the rotor in place to slide it under the ball joint. That actually went pretty smooth right there. You can see we got a little bit of thread coming out, so we'll put the castle nut so it's not gonna start coming apart. And I'll probably lift up this area so I can get some more threads in there because I don't want to cross thread it. That should be good for now. Just make sure not to cross thread it because you don't want to be messing around with these bolts. Let's go ahead and do the end links now. And I'll jack up the control arm to get the top piece in, because the threads are not popping out that much. That's better. These go at 89 inch-pounds, so try not to over tighten them. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the drill. All right, now that I have all these in, I'll go ahead and install the torsion key, and then I can work on the shock. The torsion bar is already halfway, so it should be able to hold on the key. I'm just holding it with an extension, because sometimes when you're hitting it from the front, it'll pop the key right back out. All right, so it's in now, and we can put it back in reverse with the torsion tool. All right, I got the bolt back in, and it's pretty close to where I got it out from the factory. There's the driver's side. This one's just a little bit harder to film. It just started to rain, but the torsion key is in, and now we can go ahead and move on to the shocks. The new bolt and nut are 19 millimeter, and we're gonna go ahead and torque them down to 59 foot-pounds. We got the top hardware for the shock. I'll go ahead and jack up the control arm so I can reach the top threads and put on the locking nut. If you can, you want to go ahead and torque it down to 15 foot-pounds. They really don't take that much force, so I like to do it with an open wrench. As long as you're careful with the bushings, you don't want to overdo it and squeeze them too much. That looks pretty good right there. I'm about to torque down the lower control arms and the ball joint, so I have it jacked up to right about right height, since it is hard to do it with the wheels on the ground. And the bottom bolts here will be torqued up to 129 foot-pounds. On the lower ball joint, it's going to be 74 foot-pounds, and this is going to be a 22 millimeter nut. You just want to line up the castle nut to the hole for the cotter pin. We can just bend these out the way. That's it, but we can't forget about adding grease to the fittings on the bushings. On the control arms, you can see the fittings much better through the bottom. This one's a little bit closer to the frame, but you should still have some space. And the one for the ball joint is going to be a little bit easier to reach. Alright guys, let's go ahead and recap over the front drop. So we're using DJM's 3-inch control arms, which drop the front end 3 inches. And they do come with a brand new ball joint, so that's good on maintenance. And using the torsion bar, we also changed out the shocks to their lowering shocks, the 13-15. And we didn't mess with the end links, I just left the stock ones, but you can replace them. The size is okay, so if you need to replace them, you can go ahead and do that. I just left mine alone. Even though we didn't do anything with the upper control arm, you do want to go ahead and align your truck. And I do want to do this later also, so I can replace the upper ball joint, since everything is pretty much new now, besides the end links. Last time I did do the tie rods. But something else you might have noticed is that I don't have any bump stops in the front or on the rear of the Tahoe. And that's because it came like that. But you do want to go ahead and get shorter ones or cut them. I might just do that later on. For now, I'll leave it alone. If I wanted to, I could have gone lower with the torsion keys, since I do have some drop keys here. All they do is drop it another 2 inches or 3 inches, but I'm not really ready to do that right now, so I kind of went ahead and just stuck with the 3-inch drop. Later, I might do maybe spindles, that'll drop it 2 inches, or you can do torsion keys. But I decided not to do that today because that would require changing out the upper control arms, because you'll get a lot of negative camber. If I have any issues with my alignment, most likely I'll try to adjust it myself, because usually I try to take it to shops and then they don't want to mess with it because it's lower. They say it's a little bit harder. I don't see the difference, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do that myself. I've always kind of done it like that. That's also why last time that I had steering wheel shake, I went ahead and changed out my parts and adjusted my camber by myself, because they'll usually say something like that. And I just went ahead and moved the front tires to the rear. You can kind of see them over here. They're a bit worn out because I was getting positive camber. Here's the other one. It was kind of worn out. So the front ones are a little bit better, but once I get the drop in and drive it around, I'll adjust it. If I have to get new tires, then I will. We're ready to put the wheels back on so we can check the new stance on the Tahoe. Let's take it around the corner to see how it drives and also if it settles. I'm not taking it too far, I just want to see how it drives around here. The steering wheel seems off. You can see how much play it has, kind of going to the side. I went ahead and parked it and the steering wheel straight, so let's go ahead and check it out from the outside. There it is, guys. It's looking much better, but it still looks higher in the front, so let's go ahead and measure it. When we first started, it was about 36 inches to the fender, and right now it's sitting at about almost 34 inches and a half. So it's not the full complete 3-inch drop. That means we have to adjust the torsion keys. Let's also check out on the passengers. But also, you can kind of see here that it's got a lot of toe out. It kind of came to the outer edge, so we're gonna have to straighten it out, and that's probably why my steering wheel was kind of crooked. It looks worse in the passenger side. It's much higher in the front. There's definitely more toe out, and also this one has a lot of positive camber. The tires kind of sticking out through the top, so that means we're gonna have to go ahead and lower the torsion keys and adjust it. But let's take a quick measurement. It was the same as the front driver's 36, and right now it's close to 35, so it didn't drop that much. And I'll go ahead and adjust the torsion key and also the tie rods. I'm gonna loosen them up so I can get that toe back into alignment. You can see the tie rod right there. I already loosened the jam nuts, so I'm gonna make the tie rod a little bit shorter to bring the tire in, and the same on the driver's side. And this is with the weight of the truck on. It doesn't really take that much effort. You can see when I'm moving it, it just moves. So you just want to adjust it to where it gives you a good alignment. I'm just going up to shorten it. I'm using a 13mm. You can see it's already starting to go in, so I'm gonna go a little bit more, and I will have to go into the back for the torsion key to drop it down a little bit and get that camber in, because it's got too much positive. I got it almost in, and you can see a big difference here in the driver. I haven't touched it, sticking out a lot. I'll do a bit on the drivers too. I may have actually gone a little bit too far in, but that's a good start, because I do want to go ahead and lower the rear torsion key, and that'll probably give me a little bit more toe out, and I'll have to play with it. What I'll do is start cranking the passenger side torsion key first, because this side will also affect the drivers. So if this one gets a little bit lower, that one will also drop. It's a good idea to lift up the truck whenever you're adjusting the torsion key, but since I'm going lower, it should be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and try it out. If it's too hard, I'll go ahead and jack it up. You don't want to do too much, just like small increments if you're going lower. And if you are trying to lift it up, you do want to put it on jack stands and a jack. That's on my passenger side now. And that's on the driver's side now. Let's measure the driver's side from the bottom of the floor all the way to the top of the fender. You can see it's right at 33 inches. And I'll do the passengers the same way, trying to get it as level as I can here. All right, there it is. So 33 inches right at the fender from the bottom. The driver rear is right at 33 5/8, and this is with almost a full tank of gas, because I have driven it a little bit, but it's pretty much full. The passenger rear, the same as the driver's, right at 33 5/8. You ready to see the new stance on the Tahoe? I'm done with all the adjustments, so let's go ahead and check it out. All right, there it is, guys. So she's sitting at 3.5. The rear is a bit higher. It's at 33 inches and a half, and the front is sitting right at 33 inches. But you guys let me know what you think. To get the full 3-inch drop in the front, I did have to adjust both of my torsion keys. But what I do like about the control arms is that I didn't get no negative camber, and it was also like maintenance, since it has the new bushings, the ball joint, and on the tie rods, they kept the same angle, which is good, because you don't want to have that bad angle on your tie rod. All I had to do was adjust them to fix that toe out, because you remember, guys, that the wheel was kind of sticking out, so I had to shorten it and bring them back into spec. I didn't have to mess with the upper control arms for the camber or caster. They stayed the same. All I did was just mess with the outer tie rods. If you want to get a better look at my alignment, just check it out right here. This is the driver's side, so it's sitting nice and straight, flush with the fender well. But I also like to do my own alignment, because whenever I take it, they don't really ever leave it right, and it'll go to the sides. Also, I would just spend a lot of money, but you guys let me know what you think right here. There's my alignment. It's looking straight. With the front drop 3 inches, I'm not really getting any rubbing on this 32-inch diameter. You can see here on the sides, it's nice and dry. And also in the front end, it's not touching any of those parts. But if you notice back there, it kind of touched. Most likely it was whenever I was adjusting my torsion keys, because I did go ahead and go a little bit too low, and then I just went back up to where it was all leveled. But besides that, maybe later on I might just get me some thinner tires, or you know, something a little bit different. But I haven't heard any rubbing. The same on the passenger side. You can see it's nice and dry in the back. And on the top side, there's really no rubbing, because this one didn't go as low when I was adjusting it. Maybe a small mark right there in that corner. But in the front, it's all dry, so no rubbing at all, which is good on this 32-inch diameter. It has enough space there, so it doesn't rub at all. And there's the back side on the passenger side. It's got some space. You can put your fingers through it. I do like this tire size, but later I might just change them out, because you can see they're already worn out. And I'm thinking of maybe putting something a little bit low profile, just to give it a different look. If you want to see more content like this, or this video helped you out, don't forget to like and share the video. It really helps out the channel. And if I miss anything, let me know down below in the comments. I love reading them, and I'll see you on the next one.